Welcome to another deep dive.
Yes.
Today we're taking on something I think incredibly relevant to so many of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
How we manage money within a marriage. It
Yes.
can be a real bedrock of security and strength.
Right.
Or, let's face it, a source of friction.
Oh, yeah.
For this, we're going deep into Debt-Proof Your Marriage, How to Manage Your Money Together by Mary Hunt.
That's right.
Pulling out some of the wisdom and advice that you saw in the excerpts that you had.
Yeah, absolutely. From the excerpts you provided, there's just a wealth of information and wisdom to kind of unpack.
Yes, and our real mission here is to make those clear, actionable,
Yes.
relevant to your life,
Right.
so we can move toward financial harmony, which I think benefits the relationship in so many ways.
Absolutely.
But just to give us a sense of where we're heading in this deep dive,
Okay.
what are some of the key areas that the book emphasizes?
Okay. So there are 7 key areas. We're going to start with laying the foundation, getting that relationship in sync for financial harmony.
Okay.
Then we're going to move into the power of the plan, creating your custom spending blueprint.
Okay.
Then we're going to talk about the importance of building a safety net, which is your contingency fund.
Okay.
Then we're going to move into guilt-free spending money, understanding what the book refers to as the freedom account.
Okay.
Then it's getting down to business.
Yeah.
Attacking debt with a vengeance, the rapid debt repayment plan.
Okay.
Where they're going to move into a life-changing formula, giving, saving, and living on 80%.
Okay.
And then finally, how to find hidden money, living below your means.
Got it. So 7 key areas there that we're going to be going over in detail, taking this book apart.
Yeah.
And later on in our discussion, thinking of all of our listeners out there, we are going to touch upon some of the specific financial pain points
Okay.
that Christians might experience.
Right.
And how these principles in the book can offer solutions for that.
Yes. And how they align with their faith values.
Okay, great. So I think the first thing that's so interesting is this idea of laying the foundation and getting your relationship ready for financial harmony.
Okay.
And one of the core ideas here is this idea that emotional intimacy is foundational to financial harmony.
Right. And I think this is important because, when you think about couples arguing over money, it's not always about the money.
Yeah.
It's more symptomatic of maybe some deeper issues
Yes.
regarding communication, trust, and respect.
Yeah.
So, we have to lay that groundwork.
Right.
And it's like building a house.
Yeah.
You need a solid foundation.
Got it. So in terms of focusing on that and really prioritizing that, what are the benefits of focusing on that aspect?
Well, first, it builds trust and respect
Okay.
in terms of financial decisions. So, when you and your partner are being open and honest with each other about money, there's less chance of one of you feeling blindsided.
Right.
Or, or like decisions are being made unilaterally.
Yeah.
So you're both on the same page.
What are some other benefits?
It reduces the frequency and intensity of arguments about money.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, because when you have these clear channels for communicating,
Yeah.
you're addressing these potential issues
Yeah.
proactively rather than, reacting emotionally in the heat of the moment.
Got it.
So you're staying ahead of the curve.
Okay. So what's the ultimate benefit of this unified approach to your finances?
Well, it creates a unified approach toward your shared financial goals.
Okay.
So you're both on the same team,
Right.
working together towards common objectives
Right.
rather than, maybe having conflicting priorities.
Yeah.
And pulling in different directions financially.
Now, if we don't focus on that, what can happen if we neglect that?
Oh, there are consequences.
Yeah. What could those be?
Well, one of the biggest ones is financial secrets
Okay.
and mistrust.
Right.
So if one person is hiding purchases or debt,
Right.
or even just financial anxieties, it really undermines that foundation of the relationship.
Yeah. What else can happen?
You see increased emotional tension
Okay.
and resentment
Right.
related to money.
Right.
And, when those anxieties and worries and disagreements aren't addressed,
Yeah.
they just kind of fester
Right.
and breed negativity, which spills over
Right.
into other areas of your marriage.
Yeah.
So you don't want that.
So in a practical sense, how does neglecting that impact your ability to manage your money together?
Well, it makes it really hard
Okay.
to agree on and follow a financial plan.
Got it.
Because if you're not communicating, you're not understanding each other's perspectives.
Yeah.
You're more likely to clash on, how money should be spent, saved, invested.
Yeah. So what are some concrete strategies that are being used effectively to kind of lay this foundation, this groundwork?
One of the big ones is scheduling regular business meetings, as the book puts it.
Okay.
And this is, weekly, monthly,
Okay.
sit down, just the two of you,
Yeah.
to talk about finances. And it doesn't have to be a big, long, drawn-out thing, but just a dedicated time to kind of focus
Got it.
on money matters.
Okay. What's another helpful strategy?
Active listening and paraphrasing.
Okay.
So making sure that both partners understand
Yeah.
each other's perspectives, concerns,
Mm-hmm.
priorities.
Right.
And when you paraphrase, you really are demonstrating
Right.
that you're hearing them,
Right.
you're understanding them. And that can prevent a lot of misunderstandings and arguments down the line.
Got it. And what's one more?
Setting an agenda.
Okay.
It might sound a little formal,
Yeah.
but it's actually helpful because it provides structure.
Okay.
It helps you know what you're going to talk about.
Right.
It reduces the chance of surprises or feeling ambushed
Right.
because, talking about money can be stressful.
Right.
And when you know what to expect, you can come prepared and feel more at ease.
Got it. Now, what are some of the mistakes, these competitor mistakes, the things that we do wrong
Yes.
when it comes to this?
Oh, we make a lot of mistakes.
Like what?
One of the big ones is avoiding the conversation altogether.
Okay.
A lot of people do this,
Right.
just hoping that things will magically resolve themselves.
Right.
But unfortunately, this usually leads to those unresolved problems growing bigger
Right. And that anxiety.
and anxiety increases.
Yeah. What's another one?
Blaming and
Oh,
criticizing.
yeah.
Yeah, this puts people on the defensive.
Right.
It shuts down communication.
Right.
It damages trust. And instead of trying to solve a problem collaboratively, you're just attacking each other.
Yeah.
It becomes personal.
Okay.
And then the third one is making significant financial decisions independently.
Okay.
Even if one partner is the primary breadwinner, finances should really be a joint effort.
Right.
Those unilateral decisions can breed resentment and really undermine that sense of partnership.
So if we think about this idea of laying a foundation, we've talked about this in terms of finances, but if we think about other areas of life, how can we use these same principles to achieve success in other areas?
Well, it really comes down to recognizing that the core elements of any successful partnership, whether it's in business, family, community work, it's open communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
And mutual respect.
Right.
Just like, you need to discuss your finances openly.
Right.
You need to apply these same principles
Right.
to other shared responsibilities,
Yeah.
like raising kids,
Okay.
managing household tasks.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Think about planning a family vacation.
Okay.
Instead of one person deciding everything,
Right.
the location, the budget, the activities,
Yeah.
involve everyone.
Right.
Listen to, understand their preferences,
Right.
constraints, ideas.
Right.
Work towards a compromise that everyone feels good about.
Yeah.
It's the same principle of respect for different perspectives.
Okay. So now we move on to our next area,
Okay.
the power to plan, creating your custom spending blueprint.
Right.
And I think this is interesting because the book calls it a spending plan, not a budget.
Right. That word budget can feel very restrictive to some people.
Yeah, very limited.
And this is more about, creating a roadmap,
Okay,
a customized roadmap for your money.
got it.
That truly fits your unique situation, your
Mhm.
values and your goals,
Right,
rather than feeling like you're being forced to adhere to all these rules that are impossible to maintain.
right.
And the first step in that is tracking your spending,
Okay.
to understand where your money is going.
Okay. So what are the main benefits? Let's talk about that.
Okay, sure.
Of actually having a plan.
Well, like we talked about, it gives you that roadmap,
Okay.
where each dollar is intended to go, which helps you stay on track
Right,
with those financial goals
right.
and make more informed decisions.
Okay. What's another benefit?
Gaining control and stopping those money leaks.
Oh,
Yeah, the little things that add up.
Right, those little unconscious expenditures.
Yeah.
What's the ultimate benefit?
Less anxiety, less stress.
Okay.
When you know where your money's going,
Yeah,
you feel more in control.
right.
It's like,
Yeah.
peace of mind.
Now let's talk about the opposite of that.
Okay,
If you don't have a plan,
right.
what are the consequences?
Unintentional overspending.
Okay.
Yeah. Without a plan, you just don't know where the money went
Yeah.
at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And then you're like, where did it all go?
All right.
So
Okay. What else?
difficulty achieving those financial goals.
Okay.
If you don't have a plan guiding your money, it's less likely to end up where you need it to go,
Right.
whether that's for a down payment, paying off debt,
Mhm.
retirement,
Right.
whatever.
And what's the overarching feeling of not having a plan?
Feeling out of control.
Okay.
Yeah. It's stressful.
Yeah.
It's disempowering.
Yeah.
Makes you feel uneasy about your future.
So what are some strategies that people are using to create these plans, these custom spending blueprints?
One of the biggest swings is daily expense recording.
Okay.
And you can keep it really simple.
Okay.
Notebook, index cards, notes on your phone.
Right.
But the key is consistency.
Got it. What's another one?
Regular spending record reviews.
Okay.
So reviewing those records,
Yeah.
weekly together
Okay.
and doing it in a non-judgmental way.
Right.
It's a team effort.
Okay. What's another one?
Keeping it simple.
Okay.
1 or 2 pages for that spending plan.
Right.
Don't overcomplicate things.
Now let's talk about the competitor mistakes, the mistakes that people make when they try to budget.
Yes.
The things that they're doing wrong.
Right.
What are some of those?
Well, relying on memory.
Okay.
A lot of people try to do that.
Right.
But, we're human.
Right.
Our memory's not perfect.
Yeah.
And we tend to underestimate how much we're spending.
What's another mistake?
Creating budgets that are too restrictive.
Okay.
So, they're like punishment.
Right.
And then people just abandon them.
Right.
The focus should be on intentional spending, not deprivation.
Okay. And what's one more mistake that people make?
Not involving everyone in the household.
Okay.
If it's only one person doing the budget, others might not feel ownership.
Got it. So, again, we're talking about the power of a plan. We've used finances as an example.
Right.
But how can we use this in other areas of life?
It's essential for any goal.
Okay.
Whether it's career, health, personal development, you need a plan.
Can you give an example?
Sure. If you want a career advancement,
Okay.
you wouldn't just hope for a promotion.
Right.
You'd create a plan. Identify the skills, the experience you need,
Right.
network, outline the steps to apply.
Got it.
It's about having that roadmap.
Okay, so we've talked about laying the foundation.
Right.
We've talked about the power of the plan. Now we move into building our safety net,
Right.
the contingency fund.
That's right.
And it sounds like this is our financial first aid kit.
It is.
Yeah.
Life throws those unexpected curveballs.
Right.
And this is the money you set aside.
Right.
For emergencies, whether it's job loss, medical bills, car repairs.
Yeah.
It acts as a buffer.
And the book really emphasizes funding this through the pay yourself first principle.
Absolutely. Before you do anything else with your money, set aside a portion for this fund.
So what are some benefits of having a fully funded contingency fund?
Well, first of all, financial security.
Okay.
Knowing you have a cushion to handle unexpected events,
Right.
it reduces stress and anxiety.
I bet it does. Yeah. What's another advantage?
Avoiding debt.
Okay.
When those emergencies happen, you don't have to rely on credit cards or loans.
Mm-hmm.
You have the cash ready,
Right.
which can prevent those high-interest debt spirals.
Okay. And what's a final key benefit of having this in place?
It prevents derailing your long-term goals.
Okay.
You don't have to touch your savings or investments meant for other things,
Right.
like retirement or a down payment.
Now, if you don't have this fund in place, what are some of the negative consequences?
Reliance on high-interest debt
Okay.
when an emergency hits.
Yeah.
Credit cards, personal loans,
Right.
it can get you into that cycle of debt.
Okay. What's another one?
Increased stress during job loss or medical situations.
Right.
Those are already difficult times.
Yeah.
Without that financial buffer, it can feel overwhelming.
Yeah. And what is the potential long-term effect?
Hindered progress towards long-term goals.
Okay.
You may have to dip into other savings
Right.
or delay saving further.
Okay. So based on what you saw, what are some strategies for building and maintaining this contingency fund?
Well, the first one is dedicate a percentage of income.
Okay.
The save 10% from the 10-80 formula
Okay.
is a good example.
What else?
Prioritize it as a top savings goal,
Okay.
especially early on,
Right. Yeah.
before other savings objectives.
Okay. And one more.
Keep it in an easily accessible account.
Okay.
You want it readily available when you need it.
Now let's look at some competitor mistakes. Some things that people might be doing wrong when it comes to this contingency fund.
Okay.
What are some of those?
Using it for non-emergencies.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tempting to dip into it for things you want.
Yeah.
That defeats the purpose.
Yeah. You got to keep it for those genuine emergencies.
Exactly.
Yes.
Delaying its creation.
Okay.
Waiting until you have enough money.
Right.
But you can start small and build it up gradually.
What's another mistake?
Not having a target amount.
Okay.
While 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses is recommended,
Right.
it can vary.
Mm-hmm.
But having a target helps you stay motivated.
Right. So if we think about this idea of a safety net or a buffer, not just in terms of finances,
Yeah.
but in other areas of life,
Mhm.
how can we apply that?
It's about building resilience, right? Being prepared,
Right.
just like a financial safety net. Backup plans, diverse skills, strong support networks, those can be safety nets too.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, in your career.
Okay.
Having diverse skills makes you more resilient to job loss or industry changes.
Right.
And in relationships, strong communication skills.
Yeah.
A supportive network of friends and family can be crucial during tough times.
Okay, now we move into what I think is more of a fun area.
Right.
This idea of guilt-free spending money.
Yes.
The freedom
And
account.
freedom account, understanding that, because we're talking about marriage, shared finances,
Yes,
but we still have individual needs.
absolutely. And that's what the freedom account is all about.
Right.
It's your own allowance within the family finances.
Okay.
A portion of that, 80% for living expenses
Right.
that you can spend on whatever you want.
Okay. What are the benefits of having that?
No guilt, no tension.
You can buy that book, pursue your hobby,
Right.
enjoy a solo coffee
Yeah.
without feeling like you need to explain yourself.
That autonomy
Yeah.
sounds really good.
Yes.
What's another advantage?
Less nitpicking,
Okay.
less control over each other's spending.
Right. No micromanaging.
No. When you have your own funds
Yeah.
for your personal choices,
Yeah.
there's less temptation to scrutinize every little thing.
Right. What's the ultimate benefit of this?
It fosters trust and respect,
Okay.
for individual autonomy.
Yeah.
You're demonstrating that you value
Right.
your partner's needs and wants,
Right.
even if they're different from your own.
Right. Now, let's look at the opposite of this.
Okay.
If you don't have this kind of system in place,
Right.
what are the consequences?
Well, secret spending.
Okay.
If you feel like you can't spend openly,
Right.
you might hide purchases,
Right.
have secret accounts.
What's another potential downside?
Resentment.
Mm.
Yeah, if one partner feels controlled,
Right.
like their needs aren't valued,
Yeah.
resentment builds.
Right.
And then that leads to problems.
Okay. And one more.
Hindered communication.
Okay.
If there's no space for individual spending,
Yeah.
people might not even voice what they want,
Right.
and then needs go unmet.
Got it. So what are some strategies for implementing these freedom accounts successfully?
Well, you designate a specific monthly amount
Okay.
for each spouse,
Right.
and you factor that into the overall budget.
Yeah.
A fair and reasonable amount.
Okay. What's another one?
Track the balances simply.
Okay.
Notebook, binder,
Right.
spreadsheet.
Right.
Just something to stay aware of how much is available.
What's another good strategy?
Respect each other's choices.
Okay.
As long as it's within the agreed upon amount
Right.
and legal and ethical.
Right. Absolutely. Now, what are the competitor mistakes? The mistakes that people make when they try to implement this? What are those?
Pooling all money together.
Okay.
No allocation for individual spending.
Right.
It just leads to constant negotiation and conflict.
Right. And it sounds like it undermines that trust.
Yes.
What's another mistake?
Requiring permission for every purchase.
Okay.
It can feel really infantilizing.
Right.
It erodes autonomy.
Yeah.
It undermines trust.
Right.
It really defeats the purpose.
Yeah. What's another mistake?
Unclear boundaries.
Okay.
If you don't have clear guidelines,
Yeah.
it can lead to misunderstandings,
Right.
disagreements, a breakdown of the system.
So if we think about this concept of autonomy
Mhm.
within a framework, how can we apply this, again, outside of finances?
It's important for any partnership
Okay.
or team,
Mm-hmm.
in work, family, any collaboration,
Right.
giving individuals some flexibility,
Right.
control, ownership
Mm-hmm.
over their responsibilities.
Can you give an example?
Sure, think of a team project.
Yeah.
Giving team members autonomy over their tasks
Mm-hmm.
leads to better results
Right.
and higher morale than micromanaging.
Right. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've laid the foundation.
Yes.
We've created a plan.
Right.
We've got our safety net.
Hmm.
We've got our freedom account.
Yes.
Now we're going to attack debt
Yes.
with the rapid debt repayment plan.
That's right.
It sounds like we're going to war
We are.
against our debt.
Yes.
So tell us about this.
Okay, so if debt is holding you back, this strategy is really effective.
Okay.
It's often called the debt snowball method.
Okay.
And you keep making minimum payments on all your debts,
Okay.
but you focus all your extra money on the smallest debt first.
Okay, so not necessarily the highest interest rate.
That's right. The focus is on those quick wins
Got it.
to build momentum.
Okay,
And of course, stop incurring any new debt.
crucial. So what are the benefits of this plan?
Quick wins, for one. Paying off those small debts quickly, it gives you a psychological boost.
Yeah, that sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, it keeps you motivated.
What else?
Tangible progress.
Okay.
Each debt you eliminate
Yeah,
frees up more money,
right.
which you can then put towards the next debt.
So like a snowball.
Exactly. It gets bigger and faster as it rolls.
Okay, and what's that ultimate financial benefit of that snowball?
More money each month.
Okay,
Once you've paid off multiple debts,
right.
you can then put that money towards your remaining debt
Mm-hmm.
or savings.
Right. Or other goals.
Or other goals, yeah.
Now, what are the downsides if you don't have this kind of plan?
Oh, there's some big ones.
Like what?
Prolonged debt and higher interest.
Okay.
The longer you take to pay it off,
Right.
the more it costs you.
Right.
It's like a constant drain.
Okay, what else?
Feeling overwhelmed and stuck.
Okay.
It could feel like you're making no progress.
Yeah.
And that can lead to discouragement.
Right. What's the long-term impact of that?
Limited ability to save and invest.
Okay.
All that money going to debt payments.
Mm-hmm.
Could be building your wealth,
Right.
securing your future.
Okay, so what are some strategies for implementing this plan?
Well, first, list all your unsecured debts.
Okay.
Credit cards, personal loans, student loans,
Okay.
with balances, interest rates, minimum payments.
Okay. What else?
Arrange them by smallest balance to largest,
Okay.
regardless of interest rate.
Welcome to another deep dive.
Yes.
Today, we're taking on something I think incredibly relevant to so many of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
How we manage money within a marriage.
Yes.
It can be a real bedrock of security and strength.
Right.
Or, let's face it, a source of friction.
Oh, yeah.
For this, we're going deep into Debt-Proof Your Marriage, How to Manage Your Money Together by Mary Hunt.
That's right.
Pulling out some of the wisdom and advice that you saw in the excerpts that you had.
Yeah, absolutely. From the excerpts you provided, there's just a wealth of information and wisdom to kind of unpack.
Yes, and our real mission here is to make those clear, actionable,
Yes.
relevant to your life,
Right.
so we can move toward financial harmony, which I think benefits the relationship in so many ways.
Absolutely.
But just to give us a sense of where we're heading in this deep dive,
Okay.
what are some of the key areas that the book emphasizes?
Okay. So there are 7 key areas. We're going to start with laying the foundation, getting that relationship in sync for financial harmony.
Okay.
Then we're going to move into the power of the plan, creating your custom spending blueprint.
Okay.
Then we're going to talk about the importance of building a safety net, which is your contingency fund.
Okay.
Then we're going to move into guilt-free spending money, understanding what the book refers to as the freedom account.
Okay.
Then it's getting down to business.
Yeah.
Attacking debt with a vengeance, the rapid debt repayment plan.
Okay.
Where they're going to move into a life-changing formula, giving, saving, and living on 80%.
Okay.
And then finally, how to find hidden money, living below your means.
Got it. So 7 key areas there that we're going to be going over in detail, taking this book apart.
Yeah.
And later on in our discussion, thinking of all of our listeners